Recording in progress.
Rob, are we ready?
Thank you.
We can get in our seats, please. Good morning. This is the Facilities and Infrastructure Committee meeting of November 17th, and all of our members are here in chambers. I'm Michael Lane, the chairman. Randy Brown, Ann Koreman, Amanda Champion, and Lee Shurtleff are all here. Don't see anybody on the screen from the legislature, but we sometimes are joined by other legislators. Changes to the agenda, we're going to need to add an authorizing resolution for Dwight Mengel. Dwight can't be here till after 10, so we'll put it down further on the agenda, I guess maybe after Highway Department. I think you all have copies of it.
Do we need to say the name of that or to add to the agenda?
Well, I can. I don't think we have to,
No.
You don't have to move it, but it's the authorizing the 2022 Federal Transit Administration Section 5311 grant application for Tompkins Consolidated Area Transit and Tompkins County.
I just want to make sure, so don't we have to vote to add that resolution?
We don't have,
Or not? Not in committee? Okay.
we don't necessarily have to vote, just as long as there's no objections.
Okay, just want to make sure we're not. Thank you.
Any other changes? Okay, do we have any public comment this morning? Are you here to speak to us? Okay, we're glad to have you. I don't see anybody. Anybody on the screen? No. Chair's report is that we're going to try to be done with this meeting by no later than 10:45, so that some of us want to go up to the press conference at the airport being held with the Commissioner of Department of Motor Vehicles regarding the new licensing requirements for air travel. Lisa, our County Administrator.
Morning. Thank you, Mike. I just have a brief report this morning. In preparation for this meeting, I pulled together a document which I've shared a hard copy with you, kind of summarizing the actions taken to date and the planning and implementation around the downtown facilities and decision making. So on page, the front side of it says timeline of downtown facilities planning and implementation. And this, I just kind of wanted to go over so that maybe we're all on the same page, or that this informs the staff actions to date around the downtown facilities and the plan that and the assumptions that we're working under. So back in 2019, by resolution, the legislature authorized the purchase of the 408 and 412 to 414 North Tioga Street and the Sears Street properties, at that time with the intention of constructing a building to address the space needs of several departments. Then after that, the opportunity arose and the legislature authorized the purchase of 300 and 308 North Tioga Street, the Key Bank building and the professional building, seeing that as a better site for the potential of a county governmental office building. And both of those, so the county now owns that property as well. Both of those buildings have tenants still in them with 6-month lease agreements with the county, renewable to various dates in 2023 and 2024. So then in the 2022 Tompkins County Capital Plan, which the legislature approved, it included $30.6 million for a new downtown office building, and including $1.8 million for design costs, which we had projected we might be at the design phase in 2022. Then moving right along, later in 2021, the legislature at that time declared that the Sears Street property was no longer needed for public use, and authorized the sale to INHS as the preferred developer for affordable for-sale housing.
Lisa, can I just jump in and ask you what I hope is a quick question? Do you have an idea of like the percentage of that property that got cut off? I've heard some people say like a third. Do you have any idea? If you don't, that's okay.
I don't off the top of my
Sears
head.
Street. Okay.
At some point, we could bring up the
Sometime later, yeah, the map. Okay.
the map of the property to see exactly how much was sold off there. So that sale to INHS is currently still in process. I'm working on it week to week. It's almost to the end there. And then in April of this year, the F&I committee authorized myself and the Director of Facilities, Aurel Amaro, to work with Holt Architects to update our 2019 County Departmental Space Study, which included a number of departments that are currently in lease space, as well as some additional departments. On July 21st, Holt presented the results of the updated departmental space study. We worked on it this past summer with departments and presented the updated results. Then recently in August, the legislature passed a resolution calling for the deconstruction of 412 and 414 North Tioga Street, the Baker Dental Building. And then this past week, we adopted the 2023 Tompkins County budget and capital plan, which still does include the $30.6 million for a new downtown office building. It still assumes that the $1.8 million in design costs, which I'm not sure that we're going to get to in 2022, but we could move that forward to 2023. And then a resolution that was previously under consideration called for the declaration that 408 Tioga Street is no longer needed for public use. And that is still where we're at in decision-making there. On the other side of this sheet, I've updated our and kind of consolidated our decision-making considerations to highlight the decisions that we've already come to, selling on the 400 block, selling the Sears Street parcels, deconstructing the Baker Dental Building, and it seems as though the last remaining issue there for decision-making is on the Red House, to renovate and reuse, to sell or to deconstruct, and I know we're actively involved in those decisions. And then on the 300 block, we've purchased the properties, we've performed the space study, and we are now in the decision-making phase of determining if our existing properties meet our current and future space needs, or if the center of government build on this site will achieve the space goals, and then the new building considerations that have to be taken into account in terms of the departments to be accommodated, the parameters, the size, the square footage, sustainability goals, cost considerations, and other needs in the capital plan. So I hope this is helpful to the committee in terms of where we're at in the decision-making process and kind of just laying it out and putting some parameters around it. and certainly subject to change.
Thank you for doing this, Lisa. I think it meshes nicely with our review of the space study earlier this year. I'm thinking of a couple things that we did also, and that was the investigation with IT about the need to only move once, I think is what they told us. And also that this committee has been moving things ahead. It may not go as quickly as some would like to see, but that's the way committees work. And I think we made a decision the last meeting about the Red House to postpone the decision until we could get some of these other questions answered, which I came to believe was probably the right thing to do. Anyone? Randy, and then Lee.
Just thank you, Lisa. This is helpful. On the 308 North Tioga Street in the leases, are those renewable leases for us or for them?
For them,
So it's up to them completely?
yes. And because that was, the sale was contingent on that because, for instance, Key Bank needed time to relocate and do a new build. And some of the other tenants in the professional building needed time to complete their affairs and move.
Oh, no problem. That's fine. At some point, it would, I think Lee brought this up, it'd be good to go through those buildings just to kind of see the condition they're in and whether they could be used for anything else for the county. The other thing is, and I think you answered this question, so the capital plan for 2023, the projected cost was $30.6 million at that time. It's probably going to change, right? So do that just money just moves forward every year if we don't do it? Like we're not going to build that building in 2023, obviously. So
Correct. It's slated in the capital plan, I believe, to so design in 2022. I can't remember. Construction would start in 2024, and we would start making bond payments, I believe, toward that in 2025. So it's in as a placeholder. Doesn't mean that we projected that the construction would start in 2023.
that helps. Thanks. Yep.
Lee?
This is great, Lisa. I think it's helpful to put everything into a proper context. Just, I don't know, one suggestion or question on the flip side, number 3, determine if current downtown buildings meet current and future space needs. So we're kind of going back to looking at those different, I'm assuming we're kind of going back looking at the different options or potential configurations. Are we going to take a look at the potential for using the 2 buildings, the bank building and the law offices, as a potential interim step? Is that something we could factor into it? And where I'm thinking about that is that I keep going back to the pressure on us with the court system for the DA's office and the county clerks, and then thinking a little bit about the Veterans Office, the Office for the Aging potential being incorporated back into it, and the other Commons or State Street offices. So just kind of wondering, is that kind of part of the thinking too, or would we want to insert that at some point? Would that be a desire by others?
Other colleagues. Well, in preliminary, go
I'll say,
ahead.
before you answer, Lisa, and I'll let you answer, but we were going to talk about downtown a little later, and I didn't really want to.
Well, we could revisit this.
So go ahead.
Sure. Just a brief answer, and maybe when we get to this on the agenda, we can discuss further. But I've had at least preliminary discussions with Arel about the use of those buildings as is, and there's going to be some pretty significant renovation that would need to take place. So that was not a recommendation that he would make, and maybe to your point, or maybe it was Randy's point, that a visit to those spaces might be helpful for this committee in the future.
Great. I just was hoping that was still part of the conversation.
Sure. Yep. Yep, we can add that in.
Thanks. And this looks good. Thank you.
Amanda?
Yeah, well, just thank you. This is very helpful. I think it reminds us all of all the things we've done and all the things that we've been considering. Just quick question. On the 408 Tioga, I just can't remember that 1.17 for renovations. That's like basic renovations. That's not like restore the building to its original glory.
No, that's to simply bring the building up to code.
Right, okay. Thank you.
Ian?
Yeah, thank you, Lisa. This is really helpful. I'm wondering, and I know I was one of the ones that had asked, too, about this, and I appreciate it. I know you're really busy. I'm wondering, Mike or Katrina, is this something that we could include with each agenda packet for a while? Because since it's on that way when we get to that section, it'll kind of be updated as we go along. Is this, what do you guys think?
Yeah, for future agendas.
So it's in here every time?
Sounds like the answer is yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. This is really helpful.
Okay. Lisa, anything else you'd like to report to us?
Only to say that just the Public Safety Committee is in somewhat of a parallel process looking at program needs for the public safety building in the jail. They did a walkthrough last week and are going to be bringing information back to F&I around the programming needs and space needs for that facility, for F&I to chew on in the future, to add one more variable to the list. So I just wanted to, maybe some of you attended that tour, but just wanted to make you aware that that was happening simultaneously.
Kind of to Randy's question about the capital program, obviously, you're going to have to bring together two different, I can't even think how you would term it, but you've kind of got two pots in the capital program that have got to come together somehow for your long-term planning.
Yes, and I added that on the second page under 5, the very last consideration is weighing the center of government project with other needs in the county's capital plan. So it's something
That was
definitely
subtle.
have to do.
Yeah.
But you got it in there.
Yeah. And I think it's important that, working with public safety hand in hand here, they need to tell us what programming they need, but it's going to be up to this committee to decide how we meet that programming. And I know there's been talk about should we add a pod, for example, on or not. And that is something that I think would be in the purview of this committee eventually. Anything else, Lisa?
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you for your report. Last January, when the departments were scheduled for the different committees, recycling and materials management was added to report to the planning committee, which had been a change from previous years for us. At that time, I think it was in January, Barbara Ekstrom said, well, I'd be glad to come at some point and just update you on what's going on. And so I thought it'd be nice if we had a brief report. We're not talking about the same kind of report that a committee that might be taking action has, but I believe that Leo Riley is with us today. And hi, Leo. And maybe it would be just give us an update on things like the capital program and the how things are going for your department.
All right, I can do that, Mike. Hello, everyone. Yeah, so as far as capital plans for 2023, those are broken out onto two projects or two par forms. The first project is called the Recycling Solid Waste Center Infrastructure Project. That was broken out as a separate form or project because it was going to be paid for the project was going to be paid for by ARPA funds. That budget for 2023 is $664,000. That project is going to include covering the emergency scale replacement that we have started. It will be paid for in 2023. We also have plans for the office vestibule to be repaired, refurbished in some fashion. That is the entrance to the Recycling Solid Waste Center, not our offices here. We also have push wall and tip floor repairs and refurbishment slated for next year. You probably have heard in past years where we've refurbished a particular push wall or tip floor. We have multiple push walls and tip floors, so we kind of tackle those every few years, so they're not all being worked on at once, so we can still operate the facility. We have perimeter fencing repair and replacement budgeted, along with just some general site and building repairs. The second project that we have budgeted is budgeted for $807,000, and that will include a new yard waste tipping area. If you're a user of the facility, you may notice some congestion in that area where we are currently accepting yard waste, especially in the peak season of yard waste. So our plans is to move that area more toward the food scraps transfer building and ultimately kind of create an organics area of the facility. We'll also take a look and refurbish that metals drop-off area. Sprinkler system repairs and pipe replacement is budgeted. I will say in 2021, we did some major upgrades to that system by incorporating a nitrogen system, and that has reduced the repairs that we have been dealing with over the past few years. So that was a good addition. It was a nitrogen system. Engineering is also included in the second project. The capital plans for 2024, we are going to be looking at the facility offices and upgrade those. And again, that's the offices at the Recycling and Solid Waste Center. We have food scraps building overhead door replacement. We'd like to do some scale house renovations. And we also are going to be removing some roof vents and fans that we took out of operation in 2021 that are no longer needed. So we'll be removing those and replacing any roof repairs that's going to be needed. That covers our capital plans.
Are there questions for Leo on any of those things that he's mentioned? Randy.
Hi, Leo. Can you just give us an update on the scale replacement, how that's going?
I can. The scale has been ordered. That will be made. They put that, they estimated that approximately 2 months for delivery. So we expect that at the end of December. Is going to be some repairs made to the foundation or the pit for the scale, and we're hoping to make those repairs prior to the scale being delivered. So when the scale's delivered, the plans is to set it right in place and hopefully have things back up and running mid-January.
Thank you.
Leo, we heard a little bit about the possibility of solar panels out at Caswell, and I wondered if there's any update on that.
I know we've been doing quite a few things out there. I haven't been too involved with that. I know the planning department's steering that with assistance from this department. But I know we've had different inspections, and we've been working with, I believe, a group from NYSERDA onto it. Yeah, I don't know much more than that, Mike.
It's just a team kind of thing happening at this point, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
Good.
Yeah. Our involvement certainly will be to make sure all parties involved that we have a responsibility for post-closure conditions for the landfill, such as the leachate management and protecting the cap and that sort of thing. So,
Randy.
Yes, I just wanted, I attended a soil and water meeting, and they had some concerns with the Caswell landfill that they think can be addressed, but they just wanted to make sure that those concerns were addressed if that moved forward. And when the NYSERDA gave their report, one of the things I found was interesting is the municipality can actually own that solar development. So I thought that was something new. So.
We're still trucking effluent out of Caswell, right?
we are, yes, Caswell and Hillview. Yep.
Leo, I thank you for coming in today. Anything else you'd like to tell us?
No, I think I'm all set, Mike. Nice seeing everyone.
All right. Well, thank you. We appreciate your being here.
Thanks, Mike.
Let's skip down and, well, why don't we do the minutes so we don't forget them? Someone want to move the minutes? Randy, seconded by Lee. Discussion about the minutes. I thought they were very good. They captured all that difficult discussion we had.
Oh, I did have one thing.
Sure.
See if I can find it. It was, let's see, it was regarding the Red House comment. I'm looking for it, but where it said Mr. Lamaro said something about they won't do nothing with, the essence was they won't do nothing about the Red House or something like that. And I'm trying to see if I can find it. I want to make sure if we wanted to clarify that we'll. Oh, here it is, packet page 11, downtown facilities discussion. 1, 2, 3, the third paragraph where it's just one line. In response to Ms. Koreman, Mr. Lamaro indicated the building will not be left untouched for the entire winter. Just want to know if we wanted to clarify that. If folks remember, he said something that they do like minimal maintenance or something versus, I don't know if folks want to reword that or if they think it's important.
Well, I think that's what's meant, but if you want to change some of the words, I think it would be all right.
Something like
I
they'll
think he said
maintain
it
it
was
over
they're
the
made
winter.
to be heated and they're going to inspect it regularly and those types of things.
We
Want
could
to
just,
say it's going to be winterized or something like that?
Katrina had a suggestion, maybe?
we could just say Mr. Lamaro indicated the minimal maintenance would be continued throughout the winter.
Yeah.
Is that all right with everybody? All right. Thank you, Katrina.
Thank you.
With that change, can we approve the minutes? All those in favor? Any opposed? That's unanimous. Now let's go to our Highway Department. Jeff Smith.
Hi, everybody. Morning. I don't have a lot for everybody today. I thought there was something in front of me, so I wasn't quite ready having everything up on the screen, but here I am. Capital payment summary. If there's any questions on that, couple payments to Etna Lane Bridge.
Questions?
I think some folks went out to that, right? The dedication.
Yeah, we had the ribbon cutting. In fact, as I was in Etna last night, they had a soup and salad dinner out there, and several people mentioned how pleased they are with the Etna Bridge.
Photos in the papers look wonderful, with you guys.
Thanks to Dominic for working on that, and for Jeff and the others helping us with that ribbon cutting. So that was kind of nice. I hope we do that more for more projects. I think it's good to have that. I would have been pleased to have the contractors be there in the photo too, but they kind of declined for us. But they were out there working, and if you drive over it now, all the lines are there.
Yeah, none of us got painted that day.
Can I just say one more thing about that,
Sure,
Mike?
go ahead, Ann.
That, I don't know if you were aware, Jeff, Legislator Mezzi read a letter congratulating and talking about how pleased they were, some members of the community, of how, how the project went and the minimal impact, getting feedback from the community and the minimal impact on the community and the natural infrastructure. So he read that at the, I think, 2 legislature meetings ago, early in November. Was that forwarded to you, or maybe that came from you?
I think it may have been the same letter I received and forwarded to, I believe, that Mike and Greg.
Okay, great. Yeah, it's nice to see.
Very nice. Thank you.
So that's the capital payment summary. And now you've given us some maps.
Yep, we talked about it at the last meeting. Our staff folks here, sorry, I got a cough in my throat, put together our capital project maps and, one, and also a highway roadwork map. I wanted to bring them to committee to see them. And then as we discussed, I will now package them and send them to all the towns, and so that they're aware of what we're planning for work next year. And really, we do want to stress the word draft on the road plan. As the next year closes in and we get closer, we start to learn a lot more about the required work on these projects. The funding available through CHIPS, a lot of things come together to make all these roads happen and receive some funding and some attention. And usually it's much needed, but unfortunately we're not able to always get to all these roads in the year that we plan to. Any of the roads that are on this map will stay on the map until they're completed, or those road sections anyway. Just wanted to, also mention the fact that it's a draft at this point, but these are the roads we're planning on doing in 2023.
Randy.
Thank you, Jeff. This is really good. Thank you. I just have a question on the dark blue line. What are you saying is going to be done on those?
Yeah, the definition got left off on our copy.
Oh yeah. If you don't have the full copy, yeah. The dark blue are paving projects, and the pink is chip seal projects. So with our paving projects, typically that is a resurfacing project with asphalt in the final phase. But prior to that, we will have our crews going ahead of that work and looking at whatever's needed as far as drainage or tree cutting, canopy cutting, right-of-way clearing, driveway culverts and cross culverts under the road included in that drainage piece, all the ditching, that sort of thing. Really prepping the road, getting it ready for that final paving. So the blue lines are more construction oriented, more of a longer improvement, and the chip seal roads are a preservation, and those are going on, most cases, those go on the roads that we've done the previous year, and we've put down a binder, and then that preservation is just buying us time. And then if we continue along that route, I think the chip seal roads will grow, and hopefully the paving projects will be maintained, and we'll be getting back around to roads sooner and having a better overall condition rating is what the ultimate goal is here.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Ann?
Thank you for this, Jeff. I know it takes a lot of work to get this plan going. Just a request, I suppose I could have asked you outside of this, but since I'm seeing you today, for the Swamp College project, could that, they're starting to get, again, a lot of potholes. Could that just be on your list to just at least seal up the potholes for the time being?
Yep. Our patch crew will be directed in that neighborhood.
Thank you.
Not a problem.
So we're actually going to try to do the Cortlandt Street Bridge in Groton next year. I know we put it back a year.
It's not next year. That will not be constructed next year, but it'll be going into design. We accelerated it starting this year for 2 years, knowing that we were going to need some right-of-way work done. Construction is in 24, planned for 24.
Lee?
Just a couple questions and a comment. This is real helpful, Jeff. I reference these when you give them to us when I meet with our local town and village boards. So very, very good piece to have with us. Any idea how long that Cortlandt Street project will take when you actually put the shovels in the ground?
It's not, it does have some extra work being in the location that it is. Typically, pretty standard would be a 3-month duration of time. That's if, everything goes well. So there, I would say the 3-month would be a conservative estimate of construction time period. It could be as long as 6 months. So that's not very exact, but we really try and work it in. The goal here is to have the design and everything ready to go in the fall of 23 and have it bid so that contractor, we get good numbers and the contractor is able to get a good start on procuring any long lead items, like anything that takes shop drawings and coordination between the engineer and the contractor, and then with a third party that is going to be supplying the steel beams or the pre-stressed concrete beams or whatever the actual construction of the bridge is made of. Everything gets pre-ordered and will arrive on a timely manner, and then those arrival of those items dictates your start and finish time. And ideally, the fall of 23, it's bid and awarded, and then that gives the contractor a good time to schedule his work in 24. We try and start not to impact both ends of the school if we can. Sometimes there's no other choice depending on the work and how long the project will last, but we don't so much be able to work year round. We're always working in a construction season. So starting early and finishing before fall is always a good thing.
Yeah. Now, if you have the success there that you had with the Etna Lane Bridge on coordinating it and keeping everybody happy. That, you know, and as you well know, that's a real choke point there in the village with businesses and municipal facilities there on the other side, and you know, with the village being bisected by Wasco Inlet, there's only 3 ways over, and this is one of the 3. So, but thanks. It has to be done. We know that. And
we'll work to have it go as well. We'll use Etna Lane Bridge as the paramount from here on out, and hopefully that all those things come together with weather and a good contractor and great people in the neighborhood to work with.
On that project, and that's what I was thinking about, Lee, is the fact that it's a difficult location there. When might the public hearings be held with the engineers on that? Would that be in next year, or that's going to be the following year?
Where there has been some contact with the businesses in the area at this time, we will probably schedule a public meeting. Let me think about this for a second, because I really haven't put that down. I would say that there would be like some preliminary design work. They're completing their survey and things now. So I would think that sometime in the spring, we'd be able to provide enough information to the public of what's going on out there to have a public meeting. We do plan on having a public meeting, but to be clear, this isn't a required thing because it's locally funded. Federal funded projects require it. I always think it's a good idea, especially in this type of project, but I just want to make sure that everyone's aware of that we will have one, but it wouldn't necessarily be a required one for the funding. I think we would target it sometime in the spring, maybe wait for nice weather and then coordinate with the consultant to make sure that they were at a point in the design that it wasn't necessarily all things figured out, but it was something that we could explain on what our plans are for the project and the bridge.
I think your holding the public meetings on the Etna Bridge was very helpful. Help it make that a smooth project.
Yeah, interesting. Etna was during COVID, and we didn't have an actual get-together public meeting. So the state at that time, that was federal funded, so it was mandated that you had to. They were allowing us to do like virtual,
right.
And we had the message boards and we had the website and we did mailings. And I really think that it was driven, it made a little bit more convenient to receive. We received a ton of comments on Etna Lane Bridge, more so than I believe my experience at a public meeting. We always hand out the comment cards, but we rarely get any back, and we keep minutes of the meeting and the comments, but it's never, I feel like we got a lot of good stuff out of the way we did. So I really think that it kind of like a lot of things in the future that we want to think of that hybrid look. I mean, I think have that community come together in a meeting, but also stress like we had the Etna Lane had its own website for a while, accepting comments. It was designed that way. We had a message board out there with that website on it, so everybody in the area could record it and see it. So I think that to really capture all that, we really should be looking at a hybrid type public information meeting.
Sounds like a good plan.
Yeah, thank you.
Randy.
I want to make this public record. I have a conflict of interest here. Jeff and I have talked about this before. The Morrow Road Bridge, I own the property on the corner of Cuda Road and Morrow Road, and Jeff has met me out there before I was a legislator. That road, Morrow Road, flooded this past week from the rain we had, about 150 feet towards Cuda Road. Luckily, the town who owns Morrow Road had done some ditch digging that allowed the water to then drain on the other side of the bridge. Morrow Road Bridge, there's two bridges there. There's a temporary bridge and the old bridge, and Jeff has made it clear to me what the plan is. I think he reported on this earlier in the year. But I do believe that the bridge, the fact that there's 2 bridges there, and I measured it again this past week, it's about, before it gets to the first bridge, it's about 100 feet wide, the Pony Hollow Creek. On the other side of the bridge, it's down to 30 feet on the second bridge. I realize that's a certified stream, trout stream. DEC has jurisdiction over that. The county has a bridge, and the town has the roads. It's a combination of things happening, and I've talked to my attorney, and he's advised me to send a letter to all the parties involved, and I will be doing that. I just want that a matter of public record. So thanks.
And you probably should alert Bill Troy, our county attorney, of this issue if you haven't already. Jeff, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I just said that's all I had was to show the maps, if there's anything else.
I wondered about Game Farm Road and the crossing there. We're still getting questions. Where are we to get that open?
In constant contact with the town. We're sending them all of our speed data that we're collecting on a weekly basis. If they have any questions, we're answering them right away. It's really up to the town of Ithaca. It seems to be that most of our contact has been with Town of Ithaca Engineering Office as they are preparing and working through to submit a right-of-way work permit to get anything done that they're planning to do out there.
Yeah, I've heard town of Dryden officials say that Town of Ithaca Engineering was taking the lead on it. So how are we going to get this open?
When the Town of Ithaca submits a work and right-of-way permit, and whatever they propose, we deem it that it follows the report that was submitted by Barton LaJudas that Dryden and Ithaca paid to have it done. When they submitted a work and right-of-way permit and the work is done, then it'll get open. There's nothing that our office is doing to prevent it from being open. It's a matter of process, and we're recording the speed data out there, and the speed data is what's used to determine what applications are done to provide a safe crossing. And the Town of Dryden or Town of Ithaca engineers are looking at that, and I assume that they're working through that data to provide attributes to make the crossing safe. And, then they're going to submit that to us. We're going to look at their reasoning and approve it. Eventually approve it, or approve it right away, or have questions. I'm not sure, but there's a process there.
Okay, thank you for that response. Anything else this morning for Jeff? Jeff, we thank you for being here as always.
Yep. Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Have a nice Thanksgiving.
Thanks,
Same
Jeff.
to you.
You too. Hope we don't get too much snow for your staff.
There's a lot coming to Western New York, but I don't think it's somehow missing us. I haven't looked at the map to understand it, but we're ready. We're already here. Thank you.
We were in Buffalo, we probably need those snow blowers put on. Well, let's go back and chat a little more about downtown facilities. Thank
You want to do that resolution for ITCTC? Get it out of the way?
Is he here yet? Oh, Fernando's. Oh, sure. I was looking for Dwight. Fernando's with us. Morning, Fernando.
Good morning.
would you like to talk to us about ITCTC and the resolution?
Sure. Well, the resolution itself is, just to explain who those who may not know, it's a sexual evaluation and salary recommendation for my position. Years ago, it was determined that the Transportation Council Administrative Oversight Committee is responsible for my work evaluation and salary recommendations, and the legislature needs to affirm, that's the terminology used, to affirm the council's decision, and that's what's before you today.
Would someone like to move it?
The resolution itself kind of explains a little bit of the history of how we got to this process.
So Ann is moving resolution affirming Ithaca Tompkins Transportation Council recommendation to increase ITCTC staff director's salary. That's number 11284, seconded by Randy. This had to be changed because of the timing of your budget and the timing of our contract negotiations for our management confidential contract, as I understand it. And I know the policy committee reviewed this and simply said it should be adjusted, as always, in conformance with the management confidential contract.
Yes, the Administrative Oversight Committee usually follows the county's contract recommendations.
Any other questions? Those in favor? That's unanimous.
Thank you very much.
Anything else you'd like to bring to our attention?
Yeah, we'll continue to work. Just to give you a quick highlight of what's going on in our world, all the infrastructure monies that will come from the feds, we'll continue to monitor those and work with local governments who may be interested in applying for some of those funds. We put in for a significant request for a safety project that is multi-jurisdictional. We're waiting to hear on that one. You know, we sent the application. We probably won't hear about that till next spring. There are a number of other fund sources that I know the city's applying for some money. There is a line of money that is for carbon reduction programs or carbon reduction projects that the council is currently reviewing, because it's a line of funding where the Transportation Council will be going through a project selection process, which is different from other grants that are handled or evaluated by the feds. This one is going to be evaluated locally. And that is probably going to be happening in the next 6 months. That will be putting call for projects and evaluating and selecting a project. That, like I said, that has like a carbon reduction imperative and a goal in that particular line of money. So we continue to monitor all this, because there was a fair amount of activity generated by the infrastructure bill, and not all of it has come to bear yet. We're anticipating next year to be quite busy, and we'll have a few other opportunities. And the other thing I'll let you know, that in conjunction with working together with the county's planning department, we're updating the priority trail strategy for the county. This is basically our vision for multi-use trails countywide. We developed a plan in 2014. It's been very useful to get money, to get a lot of projects done. And it's impressive to see from 2014 to now, to 2022, the number of projects that have been developed. The Black Diamond Trail, the city has 2 ongoing projects. The Dryden Rail Trail went from idea to reality, which, and that's still in the works. But there's been a lot of work done in a relatively short period of time. We want to update that plan and keep it working towards future grant opportunities and development opportunities. So if you have any brilliant ideas about multi-use trails in the county, extensions or additional trails, right now it looks like extending the Black Diamond to the village of Trumansburg has a lot of buy-in from the locals and all the players, so we're probably going to be adding that segment to the plan. If you have any ideas, feel free to contact.
You want to ask that? I can ask it if you want.
Ann?
Yeah, we were just chatting here, wondering, where do we go for a map of the trails? And before I say that, I just want to say for the Black Diamond Trail, being extended up to the village of Trumansburg, that's really going to help visitors, tourists, people that live here. I've been able to, get out on a bicycle. I have a bad knee, so hiking is really difficult for me, but unfortunately now, but bicycling I can do. And so it's really great to see the Black Diamond Trail where people are walking, strollers, bicycles, all kinds of bicycles. Anyway, hikers are coming up, 10 mile, or maybe it's 7 or 8 miles, but just to go all the way down to Ithaca and back, so to connect it, with the village of Trumansburg, that'll be great. So yeah, my question was, is there a link to where all the trails are and various around the county?
The website for the Transportation Council has a trails map in it. I'll be happy. We are updating as we go along, and certainly as part of this effort, we're updating all the maps to show what's completed, what's in the works, and what's proposed for the future.
So that's all on there, or you're
yes.
Okay.
The map is on our website, and like I said, we're currently updating for the plan that we're developing, and we'll hopefully add those links that may not be in the current map. If there's any new trails that are identified for the plan, we'll add those.
Lee?
Yeah, that's good to know. And I'm thinking about the one that got developed out in Groton here over the last couple of years. I don't know if were involved with that, Fernando, or not. That was kind of a community effort to link from the high school up west of the village. It extends quite a ways, but really that's the first trail out in that corner of the county that I'm aware of, unless there's something in McLean linking back into the Dryden system, which I guess they've got a much more comprehensive effort at linking everything together there. So,
would love to reach out to Groton. Absolutely. I know about the trail you're talking about, sort of network of trails up on the hill behind the high school.
Yeah.
It's very nice. There's an old abandoned rail line that goes down to the village of Freeville. I know the trails can be politically fraught, but they are, we have a lot of examples now that show that they're also a tremendous asset to communities. So this plan development is a great opportunity to add lines to the map, which is all we're doing right now. And if the vision is there, we just like to make sure that we work with the locals and the local municipalities.
I think
because without their support, we wouldn't put something on a map.
No, I think they've got a little taste for it now after years of, I don't want to say resistance, but there never was a strong move for it out that way. And my understanding is that trail is getting a lot of interest there, and it may be something that the community would begin to welcome if we looked at some potentials up there. And I just think about the linkages that go into Dryden, that could go into Dryden and so on. And, there's some potential.
We have a meeting scheduled next week to talk to folks in Groton, so we'll see where that takes us.
Good to hear. Thanks, Fernando.
Randy, then Ann.
Yes, thanks, Fernando. I know there's interest in my district as well for trails, and they are doing some things. And of course, the Finger Lakes Trail System is already being used in those areas. I just want to say, are we on the Federal Transit? We've talked about this.
No, we haven't. We're waiting for Dwight to come in. He couldn't be here till after 10.
I'll wait then. Thanks. Yep.
Ian?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you for showing me where that link is. So if you go to Tompkins County, our Tompkins County website, and go to the Ithaca Tompkins Transportation Council, on the left, there's towards the middle of it, transportation, including bike and trails, and then you go into trails and just keep hitting trails, and then you can come to a list of all the trails, which I found is really helpful. So just saying that to my colleagues here, Fernando. So thank you very much. And anybody that's listening, or it's probably could be up to half a dozen people online listening to this. So
I wanted to tag on to what Lee said about the trail going out of Freeville toward Groton. And I'm a strong proponent that we need to keep that on the radar. And it ought to go all the way into Cortland. And there'd be a great connection. You think of the things that are in Cortland, like their new sports complex and the Lime Hollow Nature Center and other things that people could access through the trail system. I know that I'll back up to 40 years ago when the county made a huge mistake and did not purchase all the railroad rights of way, which it could have. And that it went down the chain down to the towns and villages, and the town of Dryden couldn't wait to sell off the railroad rights of way, and that's why we have to try to reconstruct them now. I know there are some landowners that have objection to trails. Some of them have taken down or bulldozed out the actual railroad embankments. But that doesn't mean you still can't have trails. You don't have to have railroad embankments to have trails. And so there's a lot of the railroad embankments that still are in existence and can be connected there. But we have to have the will to want to work with the property owners to find solutions so that these things can happen. And as you say, Fernando, people use them a lot. It was Nancy Schuler, a former legislator, always used to say, when we build it, they'll come. And I think that's very much true when we talk about trails.
Yes, it is.
Anything else this morning for Fernando? Thank you for being here this morning, Fernando. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
You signed it, Dwight, yet? Well, let's talk a little bit about downtown then. I don't have anything more to report on transportation than what I reported to the legislature Tuesday night. So Fernando, Arel, welcome. Anything to tell us about the Red House since we met last time?
Hello. Are you able to hear me?
We can hear you. Yeah, there you are.
Okay. Sorry.
We do hear you.
Okay. Yes. Since we last met, we also had a tour of the building, the Red House, which also included for myself and for significant elements, and the Finger Lakes Reuse Center walkthrough with some of my staff, our environmental engineer, and also our abatement and deconstruction contractor to select elements or fixtures in the Baker Dental building that they would be interested in. So we have a actually fairly long list of items, and we've been working with them over the last couple of weeks to coordinate when would be best for them to come through and or take the items. Most of them can be removed prior to any abatement. There are a few that we're going to have to discuss with the contractor and both agencies regarding removal of windows and doors that have asbestos and lead on them, that there may be some extensive abatement, further abatement than what would be required for deconstruction in order for them to be clean enough to be taken by significant elements or Finger Lakes reuse. But the majority, as I indicated, there's probably 20 plus items that will not require any type of asbestos removal or abatement. Also, I had a structural analysis done of the red house. We had some concerns of the basement area, and so I did receive a structural report back from structural engineer that I reviewed earlier this week, which recommends that we do not occupy the red house because of structural concerns. I have pictures that I can show if there's interest, but that would be our recommendation. Girders and beams have deteriorated, dry rot. Most of that occurred prior to us even taking over the building, but because of the extent of the deterioration, it's our recommendation that we don't occupy the building unless we invest a lot of money in redoing all of the structural supports in the basement. Also, I was asked by Lisa, but also it was suggested at the last committee meeting that I share costs to basically continue our operation and maintenance of the Red House for the next year, or at least through spring, as well as the cost to abate and demolish or deconstruct the building. So I have those costs as well to share if you'd like to get into that.
Yes, please.
Okay, so I will share my screen.
While you're doing that, Earl, just a question. The structural supports you referenced, would any other person going into that be facing the same cost and effort?
Yes. Well, I guess it depends. If it's a private person that buys it, I guess it's at their own risk. Since our buildings are public, we would be required to make all these structural improvements. And so both my recommendation and our structural engineer is that we basically redo all of the basement, all the girders, beams, joists, column supports, that we redo all that. I mean, I can show you a picture, just let me know. I can show you pictures of the report so that you get an idea, because most of you, except for Ann, I think, have never been in the basement of the Red House.
That's okay.
Yeah.
I'll take your word for it. I think that just tells me a little bit more about what the marketability, especially in a commercial realm, might be for someone. So just something else to keep in mind.
Okay. All right. So hopefully all of you can see the spreadsheet that I've prepared there, which is basically showing cost options for the Red House, 408 North Tioga Street. So the first line is the continued annual operation and maintenance at $25,000. So that would include utilities, property insurance. We have to pay sidewalk and stormwater assessment fees to the city, the minimum maintenance and upkeep of the building, which we've been doing all along. Groundskeeping and snow removal, but it does not reflect any added costs, for either further deterioration, to take care of that. And one example is the painting of the building. We know that it's lead-based paint, and so before painting it, we would have to abate the lead and then paint the entire building. And those of you that are familiar with these types of old houses, the lead abatement in preparation to paint it is very labor intensive. and it wouldn't address any further neighbor complaints. We've tried to do our best to address complaints from neighbors. Most of those have to do with the exterior of the building, and then issues with trespassers. We've had one. It was minor, almost 2 years ago. We've actually had more trespassing at the Baker Dental building. People breaking in looking for copper. And so that's 25,000
And finding
there.
it and taking it out.
Excuse me?
I was just adding that, and they did find copper and take it out of the building. Yeah.
But yes, they did. And we replaced certain sections with PVC, but other sections we didn't connect it because we're not using the building. Then the second line is doing asbestos abatement and controlled deconstruction / demolition. And so we would abate the friable asbestos. And so the friable asbestos that we know of in the red house is joint compound and sheetrock. And that's mostly in the areas that when you walk through, you notice that there are areas that were renovated to create office space. And the original building was plaster, but those offices were all sheetrocked off walls. And so the joint compound that we tested has come back positive for asbestos, so we would have to abate that. And typically when they abate joint compound, they remove the entire sheetrock, not just the joints. So basically we'd remove all the sheetrock in the building to remove the friable asbestos. And the other friable asbestos in the building is the pipe insulation in the basement. That in most areas in the basement, it's deteriorated. So it's actually on the ground, on the dirt floor of the basement. And so after we abate all the friable asbestos, which is, the friable is that can be pulverized. And so that is a requirement that you abate that. There is not a requirement to abate non-friable. So those are mastics that you might find in floor tile or in roofing. That's not required prior to demolition. The next step, we would salvage and recycle as much of the building elements and fixtures like we are doing at the Baker Dental building. And after that has occurred, then we would move forward with controlled demolition of the building. So that's $100,000 for that. The complete renovation number we've shared before, which is basically making all the improvements to occupy the building for county use, which would include extensive ADA improvements, sprinkler system, fire alarm system, mechanical system improvements, and then added at the very bottom, the full structural improvements in the basement. And then the last number is the assessed value of the property. That hasn't changed from what we've shared in the past. So those are the numbers that were requested that I share with the committee. I didn't know if there were any questions regarding any of these figures.
Yeah, thanks. Two things. Can this page here be shared so it's as part of our minutes?
Yes. Yes.
Okay,
so
great.
I will follow it up after the meeting and send it to Katrina and Taylor to distribute to all of you.
Thank you.
Okay, great. And then the second question, just for I guess it could be part of the video. Could you just show us a picture or two from the basement, just again, so we have that kind of in the record?
Before you do that, let me just see the other questions in case they're about these figures. Randy?
Yes, thank you, Ariel. The one number that's missing here is what it would cost to deconstruct the building, and I think that we should put that at some point on the list.
Well, no, that is in here. The 100,000 is both the abatement and the controlled deconstruction. So
Okay.
that's a
Okay, great,
combined.
thanks. I guess I didn't
Yeah.
understand that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Where's the lead paint removal cost? In which figure? Is that in the $1,170,000?
Yeah, so yeah, the 1,170,000. It's in the. Can you see my pointer?
Yes.
Or not? So in the asbestos abatement and controlled deconstruction, we would not have to abate the lead, and so this 100,000 is only for friable asbestos. So
Okay. All right. Thank you.
But it would be included in the 1.17 to abate that. If we were to occupy it, we would obviously paint it and abate the lead and all the asbestos in the building.
So can we, I'm sorry, Lisa, was that a hand?
Yes.
Go ahead.
I had a question, Arel. The renovation costs of 1.17 million, I believe, was in place prior to understanding the structural improvements needed in the basement. Are those going to add additional costs to the renovation?
No, I mean, I had figured doing that anyway, and it was more because if those of you that walked the building, when you were on that first floor, you noticed that at least a portion of the building sloped, and you could, it actually sloped towards the center. So the plan had been, I had looked at it, I mean, my background is structural civil engineering, so I had looked at it. We hadn't done a thorough analysis, but I had looked at the structural members in the basement, a few years ago, and then monitored that over time. It hasn't worsened, but it's a lot of dry rot, a lot of cracked girders. Some of the bearing of the joist on a girder is not very good bearing on it. So no, my numbers included that. I just wanted to highlight it now, especially since we've done a much more thorough structural analysis. So no, that number would include that.
Ann wondered if you could show us some photos?
Okay, all right. Let me try sharing.
Of course, that's just me wanting to see the basement again.
I haven't seen it, so
That's where you see the guts of the building.
That's true.
Yeah,
Obsessed with culverts.
I was going to say culverts and basements, the underbelly of.
all right, so this is, if you see my pointer, so this is dry rot. These are girders, and you can see the dry rot there. So I think when we were walking, I had our contractor and environmental engineer, they had gone to look at the basement while we were up looking at the floors, upper floors. And they came back and one of them said, it looks like there's termites, And so I think some of you heard that. So no, this is not termite. This is basically dry rot. And it as I said, it hasn't worsened since we purchased the building, but it's extensive. And so this is actually this photo should be spun around 90 degrees, but basically that's a pier, a brick pier that has deteriorated. But it even when we bought it, it wasn't supporting a girder above it.
It's totally collapsed, right?
Yeah, yeah. And those of you that have older homes, this is not this was not installed, this brick pier, when the home was built. Most of homes, those main girders had long spans. We wouldn't allow those anymore, but long spans. And I think over time, since it was sagging, they just, previous owners built these brick piers to support it. So this one is deteriorated. And so see, this was another pier. There are actually 3 of them in the basement along the span of the main girder. And so this is one that some time ago also toppled over or was not bearing. And so they put this steel column that many of you typically see in your homes in the basement. So to support the girder up above. And here you can see the open cell asbestos. This is asbestos, and this is actually asbestos is in pretty condition as far as it hasn't deteriorated. But there's a lot of this throughout the basement. Many areas where it's deteriorated and it's actually on the floor. Going further down, this is hard to see, but if you see in the back, this is structural members, wood members, and then they're supposed to be resting or bearing completely on the stone wall, and it's not very good in most areas. So there's loose or missing stone, as it says, exterior basement wall. So these structural girders rest on the stone foundation, and so that had some concerns. And here you see more deterioration of the wood And so what they've done, and it's hard to see, but you see this is the original floor joist here, deterioration dry rot on the underside, and you can barely see just to the left or behind it is what they put sister joists. So they basically attached a joist alongside it to support it. That's a temporary fix for whoever did it. We're not correct. And what we've saw is that some of these sister joists, you want it to have full bearing on the girder. Well, this isn't too bad, but others, the sister joist isn't even bearing on the girder. And so, it wasn't done correctly. Here's splitting occurring in the wood structural members. These are structural members, and it's hard to see, and I don't know if I can zoom in. Yeah, so there's cracking along longitudinal cracks in the members there. I think there's one more. And there's further deterioration here. And this is close to bearing. That's typically where you have the most bearing load is close to the support. But, so it's deterioration there. So, and there's asbestos, as you can see there. So in any case, maybe it's a good idea to show you this after we walk through the building than before. But as I said, this has been like that for many years. I, in good conscience, could not allow occupancy of this building, at least for public and county use, with all of these structural deficiencies. But as I said, a private person could buy it and say, yeah, I'll live there without making any improvements. So hopefully that helps.
Thank you, Arel. That's eye-opening for us. Go ahead, Lee.
What about dryness in the basement or wetness? Is that a tough area as far as water runoff?
No, actually, it's not that bad. I mean, it's not very damp. I think when you first come in, there's a stair that goes down to the basement on the south end of the house. That's probably where it's a little more damp, and it's because it's close to the door and probably poor drainage when it rains down at that end. But otherwise, throughout the rest of it, I wouldn't say it's wet, slightly damp. It's as I said, the majority of it is dirt, and that's also not good for as far as moisture. If you have dirt, the moisture can
yeah, just thinking about
come up through the floor.
Thinking about mold, and then when I looked at it that day, I don't remember seeing a lot of real good gutter systems on there. So everything's probably coming right now.
Yeah. Well, no, actually, there are gutters. I think probably the time you saw it before I walked through, we had a green roof, vegetation growing in the gutters. So we had to get a lift, and we were waiting to get a lift. A lot of them are tied up at these large multi-story construction projects. In any case, we were able to get it, clean those. And so there are gutters and downspouts. There is one that I noticed when we did the walkthrough a few weeks back, that the downspout is detached from the gutter. So we're going to reattach that very soon, before we get into the winter. And there's also a portion of the back porch. The roof is deteriorating. So the cost that I showed you, the $25,000, would include some temporary repairs to a back portion of the roof along the eaves, where we did some last spring, but there's much more deterioration now. So we don't want that section of the roof to collapse into the house. So we're going to come up with some temporary structural supports to prevent that from happening.
Thanks, Earl. That adds a little bit more. And one parting shot or comment. With the estimated costs that that you've got there, those all reflect a prevailing wage rate in what a government project would cost
Yes.
versus what a private contractor or investor might be able to do.
Correct. So for those, public that may be watching, correct, yeah, those are our costs, which are higher because of prevailing wage rates. So if a private party were to do that, it would cost them quite a bit less.
But still substantial, clearly.
Yeah, correct.
Thank you.
We have been approached and requested by Historic Ithaca to give us a presentation about preservation, certainly the Red House, I think is what they're talking about, and other things that they've done, and I've scheduled them to be on our agenda for December.
Great.
Anything else for Arel? Oh, I know, I have one other question on a different issue unless you have something for us.
No.
Courthouse steps. We're going to get those fixed?
Yes, and I apologize. I had asked Alan last week to update me on that, and so he was going to confer with the consultant we've been working with. So, and I've not been able to hear back from Alan, so I will
additional
get that
information,
and
just let us know.
I'll just send it out. Yeah,
Thank you.
It's underway. It's underway.
I know they've been, half of them been closed down all summer.
Yes, correct.
All right, thanks a lot. We appreciate, Ann, go
Listen, I
ahead.
just want to say thanks to your department or contractors. I think this might have been contractors that repainted and took off the doors on the legislature
Oh, yes.
and planning department. So spectacular
Oh,
job.
that was our carpenter, Larry.
Oh, that
Larry
was
Sprague.
your carpenter?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
He did a great
did
job.
those. No, yeah, and I saw him as working on it in the shop here as I'd come back into returning from meetings and such, and he spent a lot of time and effort because the lower portion, especially the DeWitt entrance doors, the lower portion of those wood doors were deteriorating, so he had a lot of special products and materials that he put in there to rebuild it, and removed lower section of wood, put new wood at the bottom, used Bondo to make it, fill in some holes and such, and really did a marvelous job with the door.
Please extend
And
our
also,
thanks.
yeah, and you also may notice the cameras as you enter either the Court Street or DeWitt entrance of the building. There's a camera at the top of that arch above the doors. And then once you come into the elevator lobby, there's also a camera, at least on the DeWitt entrance, above the water fountain. There's also one on the Court Street entrance in that lobby. And they're in your chambers. If you look over by the stairwell doors in the corners, there's a camera at each corner by the stairwell doors. Those actually, as we're speaking, they are programming those cameras, and so they should be fully programmed and be probably by the time we're done, if not by lunchtime today. And so maybe next time I can, at our December meeting, bring up those cameras live so you
Show
guys
us
can
ourselves,
look
right?
you can see them and you can wave at each other at the cameras. But,
That would be great to see the different views.
I did point them out to the legislators Tuesday night that the cameras had been set up, so.
Good, yeah, and I was pushing because they were installed by our electrical contractor, but then the programming is done by our security contractor, and so I was pushing them to program those cameras because they've been up for almost 2 weeks now, and I think most people think that they're operational, and so there's that Rob, showing the cameras there, and so I told them, I said, if you can do it before November 17th, I have a committee meeting, please do so. And so they came back and said, well, as soon as we can do this November 17th at 9 o'clock. And I said, well, don't go up in the legislative chambers because we're going to be meeting at that time. So they're working on the first floor, doing the 4 cameras. And then when we're done with the committee meeting here, they'll come upstairs and do the 2 focus and adjust those 2 cameras there.
Thank you very much and thank the people working on that for us.
All right, I will. Thank you.
All righty. Again, thank you for being here this morning. Let's go to Dwight. Dwight Dwight. We put you at the last thing, as it turns out. We've added your resolution to the agenda.
Want to sit further up so you can?
Let's see if we get it on the table. Authorizing 2022 Federal Transit Administration Section 5311 grant application for Tompkins Consolidated Area Transit in Tompkins County. Someone want to move that? Amanda? Seconded by Randy. Tell us about it. Dwight, good morning.
Good morning. I was just thinking that we first applied for this funding like 40 years ago. And so
Well,
we
they've been
have,
slow, haven't they?
not for this grant, the state DOT, they offer this every 2 years. And this is a like rural transportation program. So with rural funds. Now what is unique, there's only about 6 or 7 locations in the state which are both urban and rural, and we are one of those urban and rural systems. And so annually we get urban formula funding. Every 2 years we apply to the state for the rural funding. After they approve what they're going to approve, then we then turn around and apply again to the Federal Transit Administration, because by letter, they turn this rural funding into urban funding, and we go directly to the feds to get a contract. And it's a pretty quick process. The total amount of federal funding we're asking for is $3,189,814. There's operating assistance for a TCAT of $1,176,500 federal. And then the rest are capital projects. TCAT has 2 capital projects relating to rehabbing the facility, and DOT asks that we calculate a rural portion of this because TCAT operates urban service and rural service, so in the same facility. So they asked us, well, what's the rural portion? So what I did was to look at the revenue miles operated in 2019 for rural service and urban service that TCAT had. And so 42.2% was rural. So that's the allocation, which is shown here. We also have for Gadabout purchasing 3 buses, which are originally from 2012, and it's definitely time for them to be replaced. Also, they're purchasing computers, and you're needing to upgrade their computers and their local area network and so forth. Excuse me. Then we have with Ithaca Dispatch, the taxi company. The county worked with them in 2014 to purchase a special wheelchair accessible vehicle through this program. And Ithaca Dispatch paid for 20% of it, and the federal government paid for 80%. That was called the MV1. That was a great vehicle. Unfortunately, MV1s are not made anymore. And Ithaca Dispatch operated it for 7 years and 408,000 miles. And then they needed to retire it. So here, what they've asked us for is to assist them, again, for the 80% federal, to purchase 2 used wheelchair accessible taxis, which would be affordable and available, and they could put them in service because they say they have a very significant increase in demand and they don't have wheelchair accessible. They have 1 wheelchair accessible taxi, but they definitely need more. So we're asked to do that. The last 2 projects are they're county projects, they're mobility management projects. The largest one is our collaborative work we do with Cornell Cooperative Extension for the Way to Go program, and the regional program of working with our neighboring counties on, it's called Move Together New York program, and the mobility managers work together in terms of how they can integrate their services and programs, and we really need to reinvent a very active carpooling program, regional program. There's a very significant need for this, and 20% of our labor force commutes from outside of the county daily, and for us to begin to address a whole number of issues here, but we need to get more people to be able to offer rides to neighbors going to the same place. And we had a very, well, not just us, but in general, the peak for carpooling was in the 1980s. And we didn't have computer systems and all of these other things, and we didn't have the internet. But now we need to take, this is not a passive program. It's not something where you can go and you just put it out on the web and people access it. It has to be much more engaged, and we also need to be showing people carpooling in the vehicles that they have, not in the vehicles of, tomorrow, but what they have now. And there's very good strategies within other parts of the United States and the world, frankly, that are successful doing this. So there's a very well-organized strategy for doing that. So that's really what we're asking for. As I said, the total funding from the federal government is $3,189,814, and I'd be very happy to answer any questions people have.
Questions before we vote? Ann?
So this is kind of, I don't know, I say routine, I'm trying to think of the right words, grant, I mean, it's every 2 years. Are you feeling pretty confident that this will be awarded, or not? I'm confident because the state has never had this much money before, because they're also allocating COVID emergency funding through this program. So there's ARPA money, there's CRISA money, and then there's their regular money. And they never had the total that they're allocating. Okay, great. And then if it gets awarded, you'll let us know. We have to
absolutely
because pass through this from here.
Very,
right,
very
great.
much so.
Well,
you will hear us, celebrate.
Thank you very much.
Lee?
The local share is entirety from our partners.
Okay. So.
Us,
Third,
Cornell.
A third,
So that's TCAT, Gadabout, Ithaca Dispatch, Cornell Cooperative Extension.
So that 252 gets carved up by several
Yes.
contributors.
Oh, yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes.
Great, thank you.
Okay, can we vote? Those in favor? That's unanimous.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dwight. Thanks for the clear explanation. Anything else before the group today?
Just a reminder, I'll be away for the December meeting. If I get a chance, I'll just try and chime in, especially to listen to the history presentation regarding the Red House, and so I'll see you guys in
I'd
January.
like to have you if you can. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, committee. Thank you very much, Katrina.